Chapter 26 of the Turmoil. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Turmoil, Volume 1 of the Growth Trilogy by Booth Tarkington. Chapter 26. George departed, and Bibbs was left gazing upon chaos and listening to thunder. He could not reach the stairway without passing the open doors of the library, and he was convinced that the mere glimpse of him, just then, would prove nothing less than insufferable for his father. For that reason he was about to make his escape into the gold and brocade room, intending to keep out of sight, when he heard Sheridan vociferously demanding his presence. "Tell him to come in here. He's out there. I heard George just let him in. Now you'll see." And tear-stained Mrs. Sheridan, looking out into the hall, beckoned to her son. Bibbs went as far as the doorway. Gurney sat winding a strip of white cotton, his black bag open upon a chair near by, and Sheridan was striding up and down, his hands so heavily wrapped in fresh bandages that he seemed to be wearing a small boxing glove. His eyes were bloodshot, his forehead was heavily bedewed, one side of his collar had broken loose, and there were bloodstains upon his right cuff. "There's our little sunshine," he cried as Bibbs appeared. "There's the hope of the family, my lifelong pride and joy. I want—" "Keep your hand in that sling," said Gurney sharply. Sheridan turned upon him, uttering a sound like a howl. "For God's sake, sing another tune!" he cried. "You said you came as a doctor, but stay as a friend, and in that capacity you undertake to sit up and criticize me." "Oh, talk sense," said the doctor, and yawned intentionally. "What do you want Bibbs to say?" "You were sittin' up there tellin' me I got hysterical. Hysterical! Oh, Lord, you sat up there and told me I got hysterical over nothin'. You sat there tellin' me I didn't have as heavy burdens as many other men you know. I just want you to hear this. Now listen." He swung toward the quiet figure waiting in the doorway. "Bibbs, will you come downtown with me Monday morning and let me start you with 2 vice presidencies, a directorship, stock, and salaries? I ask you." "No, father," said Bibbs, gently. Sheridan looked at Gurney and then faced his son once more. "Bibbs, you want to stay in this shop, do you, at $9 a week, instead of taking up my offer?" "Yes, sir." "And I'd like the doctor to hear. What'll you do if I decide you're too high-priced a workin' man either to live in my house or to work in my shop?" "Find other work," said Bibbs. "There! You hear him for yourself!" Sheridan cried. "You hear what—" "Keep your hand in that sling." "Yes, I hear him." Sheridan leaned over Gurney and shouted, in a voice that cracked and broke, piping into falsetto, "He thinks of bein' a plumber! He wants to be a plumber! He told me he couldn't think if he went into business. He wants to be a plumber so he can think." He fell back a step, wiping his forehead with the back of his left hand. "There! That's my son! That's the only son I got now! That's my chance to live!" he cried, with a bitterness that seemed to leave ashes in his throat. "That's my one chance to live! That thing you see in the doorway yonder!" Dr. Gurney thoughtfully regarded the bandage strip he had been winding, and tossed it into the open bag. "What's the matter with giving Bibbs a chance to live?" he said, coolly. "I would if I were you. You've had 2 that went into business." Sheridan's mouth moved grotesquely before he could speak. "Joe Gurney," he said, when he could command himself so far, "are you accusin' me of the responsibility for the death of my son James?" "I accuse you of nothing," said the doctor. "But just once I'd like to have it out with you on the question of Bibbs, and while he's here, too." He got up, walked to the fire, and stood warming his hands behind his back and smiling. "Look here, old fellow, let's be reasonable," he said. "You were bound Bibbs should go to the shop again, and I gave you and him both to understand pretty plainly that if he went it was at the risk of his life. Well, what did he do? He said he wanted to go, and he did go, and he's made good there. Now, see, isn't that enough? Can't you let him off now? He wants to write, and how do you know that he couldn't do it if you gave him a chance? How do you know he hasn't some message, something to say that might make the world just a little bit happier or wiser? He might, in time. It's a possibility, not to be denied. Now he can't deliver any message if he goes down there with you, and he won't have any to deliver. I don't say going down with you is likely to injure his health as I thought the shop would, and as the shop did the first time. I'm not speaking as doctor now, anyhow, but I tell you one thing I know. If you take him down there, you'll kill something I feel is in him, and it's finer, I think, than his physical body, and you'll kill it deader than a doornail. So why not let it live? You've about come to the end of your string, old fellow. Why not stop this perpetual devilish fighting and give Bibbs his chance? Sheridan stood looking at him fixedly. What fighting? Yours, with nature. Gurney sustained the daunting gaze of his fierce antagonist equably. You don't seem to understand that you've been struggling against actual law. What law? Natural law, said Gurney. What do you think beat you with Edith? Did Edith herself beat you? Didn't she obey without question something powerful that was against you? Edith wasn't against you, and you weren't against her, but you set yourself against the power that had her in its grip, and it shot out a spurt of flame and won in a walk. What's taken Roscoe from you? Timber's bear just so much strain, old man. But you wanted to send the load across the broken bridge, and you thought you could bully or coax that cracked thing into standing. Well, you couldn't. Now here's Bibbs. There are thousands of men fit for the life you want him to lead, and so is he. It wouldn't take half of Bibbs' brains to be twice as good a businessman as Jim and Roscoe put together. What? Sheridan goggled at him like a zany. Your son Bibbs, said the doctor composedly. Bibbs Sheridan has the kind and quality of a gray matter that would make him a success in anything, if he ever wakes up. Personally, I should prefer him to remain asleep. I like him that way. But the thousands of men fit for the life you want him to lead aren't fit to do much with the life he ought to lead. Blindly, he's been fighting for the chance to lead it. He's obeying something that begs to stay alive within him, and blindly he knows you'll crush it out. You've set your will to do it. Let me tell you something more. You don't know what you've become since Jim's going thwarted you, and that's what was uppermost, a bafflement stronger than your normal grief. You're half mad with a consuming fury against the very self of the law, for it was the very self of the law that took Jim from you. That was a law concerning the cohesion of molecules. The very self of the law took Roscoe from you and gave Edith the certainty of beating you. And the very self of the law makes Bibbs denying you tonight. The law beat you. Haven't you been whipped enough? But you want to whip the law. You've set yourself against it, to bend it to your own ends, to wield it and twist it. The voice broke from Sheridan's heaving chest in a shout. Yes, and by God I will. So Ajax defied the lightning, said Gurney. I've heard that damn fool story too, Sheridan retorted fiercely. That's for children and niggers. It ain't 20th century, let me tell you. Defied the lightning, did he, the jackass? If he'd been half a man, he'd 'a' got away with it. We don't go showing off defying the lightning. We hitch it up and make it work for us like a black steer. A man nowadays would just as soon think of defying a woodshed. Well, what about Bibbs? Said Gurney. Will you be a really big man now and... Gurney, you know a lot about bigness. Sheridan began to walk to and fro again, and the doctor returned gloomily to his chair. He had shot his bolt the moment he judged its chance to strike center it was best, but the target seemed unaware of the marksman. I'm trying to make a big man out of that poor truck yonder, Sheridan went on, and you step in, begging me to let him be Lord knows what. I don't. I suppose you figured out that now I got a son-in-law. I might have needed a son. I got a son-in-law now, a spender. Oh, put your hand back, said Gurney wearily. There was a bronze inkstand upon the table. Sheridan put his right hand in the sling, but with his left he swept the inkstand from the table and halfway across the room, a comet with a destroying black tail. Mrs. Sheridan shrieked and sprang toward it. Let it lay, he shouted fiercely. Let it lay. And, weeping, she obeyed. Yes, sir, he went on in a voice the more ominous for the sudden hush he put upon it. I got a spender for a son-in-law. It's wonderful where property goes sometimes. There was old man Tracy. You remember him, Doc? J.R. Tracy, solid banker. He went into the bank as messenger, 17 years old. He was president at 43, and he built that bank with his life for 40 years more. He was down there from 9 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon the day before he died. Over 80. Gilt edge, that bank? It was diamond edge. He used to eat a bag of peanuts and an apple for lunch, but he wasn't stingy. He was just living in his business. He didn't care for pie or automobiles. He had his bank. It was an institution, and it come pretty near being the beating heart of this town in its time. Well, that old man used to pass one of these here turned up nose and turned up pants cigarette boys on the streets. Never spoke to him, Tracy didn't. Speak to him? God, he wouldn't 'a' coughed on him. He wouldn't 'a' let him clean the cuspidors at the bank. Why, if he'd 'a' just seen him standing in front of the bank, he'd 'a' had him run off the street. And yet all Tracy was doing every day of his life was working for that cigarette boy. Tracy thought it was for the bank. He thought he was giving his life and his life blood and the blood of his brain for the bank. But he wasn't. It was every bit from the time he went in at 17 till he died in harness at 83. It was every last lick of it just slaving for that turned up nose, turned up pants cigarette boy. And Tracy didn't even know his name. He died not ever having heard it, though he chased him off the front steps of his house once. The day after Tracy died, his old maid daughter married the cigarette, and there ain't any Tracy bank any more. And now, his voice rose again, and now I got a cigarette son-in-law. Gurney pointed to the flourishing right hand without speaking, and Sheridan once more returned it to the sling. My son-in-law likes Florida this winter, Sheridan went on. That's good, and my son-in-law better enjoy it, because I don't think he'll be there next winter. They got $12,000 to spend, and I hear it can be done in Florida by rich sons-in-law. When Roscoe's woman got me to spend that much on a porch for their new house, Edith wouldn't give me a minute's rest till I turned over the same to her, and she's got it, besides what I gave her to go east on. It'll be gone long before this time next year, and when she comes home and leaves a cigarette behind for good, she'll get some more. My name ain't Tracy, and there ain't gonna be any Tracy business in the Sheridan family, and there ain't gonna be any college foundin' and endowin' and trusteein', nor God knows what to keep my property alive when I'm gone. Edith'll be back, and she'll get a girl's share when she's through with that cigarette. But, by the way, interposed Gurney, didn't Mrs. Sheridan tell me that Bibbs warned you Edith would marry Lamhorn in New York? Sheridan went completely to pieces. He swore while his wife screamed and stopped her ears. And as he swore, he pounded the table with his wounded hand. And when the doctor, after storming at him ineffectively, sprang to catch and protect that hand, Sheridan wrenched it away, tearing the bandage. He hammered the table till it leaped. Fool, he panted, choking. If he's shown gumption enough to guess right the first time in his life, it's enough for me to begin learning him on. And, struggling with the doctor, he leaned towards Bibbs, thrusting forward his convulsed face, which was deathly pale. My name ain't Tracy, I tell you, he screamed hoarsely. You give in, you stubborn fool. I've had my way with you before, and I'll have my way with you now. Bibbs's face was as white as his father's, but he kept remembering that splendid look of Mary's, which he had told her would give him courage in a struggle, so that he would never give up. No, you can't have your way, he said. And then, obeying a significant motion of Gurney's head, he went out quickly, leaving them struggling. End of chapter 26.